One of the big lamentations you'll hear from movie fans, even comic book movie fans, is that sometimes, including me, sometimes comic book movies, while they're great and we love them and we eat them up, sometimes they lean into tropes a little bit too much. Like particularly, hey, we don't have a lot of substance, throw in a big cameo. That'll get everybody excited. Ooh, look at the keys, everybody. I mean, and it's one thing. And an over-reliance on shared cinematic universe. Everything has to be connected and all this kind of stuff. And I've been super encouraged lately, particularly by Warner Brothers, who a couple of their last few movies, The Joker and now The Batman, are being received incredibly well, making money, and are just excellent, excellent films. In the case of The Joker, being nominated for Best Picture, winning Joaquin Phoenix an Academy Award, all this great stuff that are not about connecting to other films and not about a lot of fan service, not about a lot of kind of stuff. And it's just really cool seeing comic book movies being able to accomplish that in this day and age. Well, the big executives over at Warner Brothers, we have, Emmerich, has chimed in, and some people interpret what he said here as taking a shot at Marvel. I don't interpret it as that. But he was talking about, the success of the Batman and where they're going. And he said this. He said the following. The secret of the movie business is quality. Can't disagree with him. It's the best business strategy for both theatrical motion pictures and superhero movies. I didn't know they were two separate things. Anyway, the movies don't have to all have the same tone or interlock with other DC movies or have an Easter egg that sets up another film. Quality is the most important factor for a studio. And the biggest thing you can do to influence quality is the filmmaker that you hire. Now, he goes on to talk about how they really want to focus on making their films director-driven and all that kind of stuff. And I had a couple of thoughts.
I thought you might.
Some of which I had to take back.
Oh.
Because my initial thought was when he's saying, the movies don't have to have all the same tones or interlock with other DC movies that had Easter eggs and set up other films and Easter eggs, you can count cameos and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute, time out. I was just watching Peacemaker, and I could have swore you had Aquaman and Flash and a silhouetted Superman and a silhouetted Wonder Woman showing up. I mean, huh? What are you talking about? You don't have to have cameos or Easter eggs or things that connect to a larger cinematic universe. And then, of course, I won't go into what happens in the Batman, but then I re-looked at what he said again. And what he's saying actually does make a lot of sense. He's saying the movies don't have to all have the same tone or interlock with other DC movies or have an Easter egg that sets up other films. He's not saying you can't have exciting action style comic book movies that are like the other ones they've done. He's not saying you can't interlock them with other movies. He's not saying you can't have Easter eggs or cameos. What he's saying is they don't all have to do that. They don't have to all do that. And on that, I have been waiting for a long time to hear a movie executive say that. Because, again, like I said, one of the most exciting things for me in the development of comic book movies over the last few years has been The Joker and The Batman. Saying, yes, we can have all these great shared cinematic universe films. I can't wait for Flash. I cannot wait for Doctor Strange 2. I cannot wait for Thor, Love and Thunder. Those are going to be great. But you don't just have to do those movies. You can be more creative and give more creative freedom to filmmakers and let them tell isolated, outside of shared cinematic universe movies. And the results have been The Joker and the results have been The Batman. And that's pretty damn good. 2 for 2 by my estimation. And I've said before that I really look forward to Kevin Feige, hopefully, who's just like the greatest producer of all time. But I would really love to see Kevin Feige take a look at that and say, yeah, let's bring in a filmmaker, maybe an Edgar Wright, who was going to do Ant-Man, but we had to part ways because Ant-Man that he wanted to make no longer fit in with our overall MCU, so we really couldn't give him that creative freedom. Well, maybe we do let Edgar Wright come in and tell an outside of the MCU Marvel-based story. God, I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you the concept of that excited me. And that leads into the other thing that Emmerich said, where he talks about how our films are going to be director driven. And, the biggest thing you can do to influence quality is the filmmaker that you hire. See, you can do that when you're telling isolated standalone movies. You can't do that effectively in a shared cinematic universe. Like the MCU would be an absolute unequivocal mess if Kevin Feige just went to his filmmakers and said, yeah, make whatever movie you want. The whole thing would implode. It wouldn't work.
Whatever makes you happy, Tinka.
Yeah,
Go for
whatever
it.
makes you
Tinka, you
happy.
do what you want.
You just do you. We'll figure it out. No, if you're going to have an MCU that works and becomes the biggest, most successful film franchise in cinematic history, you got to have creative control at the top, and then filmmakers have to adhere to certain parameters. If you want filmmakers to do really whatever they want, then you got to give them standalone, isolated movies. You can have both, and both can be successful. So while I kind of first was looking at Emmerich's comments and sort of rolling my eyes, the more I think about what he said, to me, I think he's right on the money, and it makes me excited about what the future of comic book movies as a whole can be and what the future of DC can be moving forward. Because I'll tell you what, that right now they're kind of killing it. Like when you're talking about Joker or Peacemaker, the Batman, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, whatever. But for the most part, they have been crushing it. And I'm excited to see it. Anyway, Rob, you're reading his comments. What do you make of them?
Well, it's, I hear this and I'm thinking, wow, that should be pretty much par for the course for every movie you make, Toby Emmerich.
Yes.
I mean, director-driven, creative-driven properties, you want to have the best filmmakers tackling the best material. That should just be what every studio executive should say. But in terms of superhero movies, the problem with Warner Brothers is they didn't have a Kevin Feige. They wanted to emulate Marvel's success without having the infrastructure, meaning the creative infrastructure, in place to do that. And you talk about director-driven. The Nolan Batman films are a perfect example. Those films are their own movies. They're hermetically sealed, and they weren't servicing a wider universe. They were servicing their own. And you had a creative entity in Christopher Nolan. He would make a Batman movie, then he would go make an Inception, and then he would make The Dark Knight, and he'd make something else. And so you had that. The problem is you can't have a shared cinematic universe work unless you have people like Kevin Feige, Louis D'Esposito, and Victoria Alonso at the top, making sure that there's people who know what they're doing. Just like you can't have a great TV show without great showrunners, And I think that what Warner Brothers has discovered is, yes, we wanted Marvel's success, but we didn't have the people in place to make that happen. So we floundered, and we floundered a lot. Now, Todd Phillips makes the Joker for $65 million, and it makes $1 billion. The Batman, I don't know how much it costs, but Matt Reeves gets to make his new take on the film. It's their biggest opening in the pandemic era. I think it's great. It's great that he said that, but this is not rocket science.
Chris, you're hearing his statements. He's got a lot of layered stuff in there.
Yeah.
What do you think about what he's saying? What's applicable? What's not applicable? What works? What doesn't? What do you think?
Well, I think going back to Rob's point, you bring up such a great point here, Rob, of they haven't had a Feige, and this is what we need. We need everything to kind of come together with that master plan, right? Of let's put these puzzle pieces together. If they are going to be their own entities, let's make sure that is well known. Don't try to keep crashing them together. You can't do circle and square here, right? And hope that they're going to just stick. You either need to have something that's nice and cohesive, or they can all be their own thing with these kind of auteur approaches to them. And real quick, Birds of Prey is great. I'm just going to say that. Birds of Prey is fantastic.
I know a lot of people that really like it. I was.
Well,
it's the one DCEU movie I don't like.
And this just goes back to how subjective film is, though, too, right? Because Joker, I saw Joker once, and I never need to see it again. And I just am going to have a different perspective as a comic and as a woman, because that movie's terrifying, right? It's just like, I never want to see this again, because I know that guy. I know him, and he really exists.
He lives in my building.
Right? So, there's that. But I'm excited to hear them kind of realize one of their issues and address one of their issues and own it. And hopefully they'll move forward and give us some things that are really, really nice. And to borrow a phrase from you, don't feel like member berries. Feel like things that work together as a whole, as a cinematic universe. Otherwise, don't call it a cinematic universe.
One of the big problems, though, here's the thing. Warner Brothers has tried over the years to put together what their Feige structure would be. Sometimes it was a single person. Sometimes it was a committee of people, which is rarely going to work, but it can. Committee can work. I mean, just look at the The Russo brothers. I mean, they're a committee of two, and they make their projects work great. The problem has been, oh, and once again, I forgot to turn on her fan. The problem has been that it's a traditional problem with a lot of organizations, which is giving responsibility without giving authority. Okay? And this is a corporate mistake that a lot of companies make, that a lot of businesses, that a lot of teams, that a lot of organizations make. Giving somebody a responsibility to do something, but not giving them the authority to truly carry out with their vision. Warner Brothers has suffered with that in the past, where they put this person up and then they put this person up and then they put this person thinking, now, yeah, you're going to be the sheriff now, you're going to be, or this group, you guys are going to be responsible. But at the end of the day, they don't really give them authority to truly take ownership of it and go. Kevin Feige's always had a boss, whether it was Alan or whether it was Big Papa Iger or whatever. He's always had bosses, but his bosses empower him to, you're responsible for making our MCU work. So we're also going to give you the authority to go and do it. And we'll step in where we need to if there's bigger issues that supersede just the MCU, like the James Gunn situation did. Alan Horn had to get involved indirectly because that superseded just the MCU and became a Disney-wide issue. I still don't like how they handled it, but whatever. But that's kind of been the big thing. And that, to me, it hasn't been about, Warner Brothers hasn't been willing to put somebody in charge. It's that they've been willing to put somebody in place to be responsible for making it work without actually giving them the authority to do it. And I think if they can learn that lesson, they could be off to the races. And under David Zaslav, the CEO of Discovery, who's about to be the new boss of Warner Brothers, that's what he does. He takes in he puts a president in place of all their different branches of their networks, and he gives them the authority to run your network. Go. I'll get involved where I need to, but otherwise than that, you run the home whatever channel. You run the cooking channel. You run the Food Network. And he empowers them to just go and do it.
And also, John, but you have to have the people that really are worthy of having that authority. Because a guy like Kevin Feige, we've talked about it on the show, he was responsible, he worked as a producer on 14 Marvel movies before the MCU started. He worked with different filmmakers, he worked with different characters, and he saw the ins and outs of how these movies work and how these movies don't work. The level of experience that he got making Marvel movies, when he finally got to launch the MCU in 2008 with Iron Man, he had more experience as a producer than anyone else on the planet making Marvel movies. And he knew, and what we need are people with that ability and that understanding to have that authority. Because a lot of the time, look at Bob Chapek. He worked his way up into the corporate structure. He did good in some places, less good in others. Now he's, because of attrition or because of his job, he ascends to the leadership position of Disney. Is he the best qualified person? We'll see.
Yeah.
But I think that's the problem in a lot of these corporate structures. People rise to the top without necessarily having the understanding to be given the authority they need to implement change.
But part of the problem too is they don't give them a chance. Like at Warner Brothers, it doesn't look like they've given them the authority to do things and then truly give them a chance to see if their vision can work. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's part of the reason why I say I don't like the job Bob Chapek is doing at all, but I still think we need to give him a little bit more time.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels very short-sighted right now.
Yeah, and that's what Warner Brothers has been historically.
Yeah.
Short-sighted. Like, they've been very reactionary, very whatever, but let's see if they can get things on track here, move forward. Question is for you guys. What do you think about these comments saying about they want to focus on the quality of the films, more on filmmakers? We're seeing films like The Joker and The Batman coming out. What do you think? Where's your enthusiasm level right now for the future of DC and the DCEU? Whatever you guys are thinking, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, the good folks at Manscaped. You know, I was in the shower the other day and I looked down and I thought, my goodness, the boys look fantastic. Dr. Jack Hammer, the amazing Mr. Fantastical, have never looked or felt better, and that is in part due to our friends at Manscaped. Because our friends at Manscaped are the global leaders in below-the-waist hygiene and are turning men's shower dreams into their favorite routine with the all-new Ultra Premium Collection. This all-in-one hygiene skin and hair bundle is designed to upgrade the everyday man's shower routine from head to toe. Your skin, hair, and balls deserve the best, my friends. You start off using the cologne-infused Ultra Premium Body Wash with aloe vera and sea salt to keep your skin feeling clean and moisturized all day. Then boom, it's time to take care of your hair. Simply apply the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner that cleanses and nourishes your hair all in one step. Then once you dry yourself off and hop out of the shower, it's time to protect yourself from body odor by applying the Manscaped aluminum-free deodorant. And do you have tattoos or any dry skin? A lot of us do. It's time to hit your skin with the hydrating body moisturizer spray. Cap it all off by applying some Manscaped lip balm. And then last but not least, we're moving on to the Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer to clean off any unwanted body hair. So guys, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code Campea, that's Campea at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Campea at manscaped.com.